This is the case of a 14-year-old girl weighing just 35 pounds, comatose, and barely clinging to life. Her own family spun a tale of this out-of-control child with behavioral issues who just refused to eat as a result of her autism diagnosis. But as the truth began to unravel, a far more sinister reality emerged. Not only was every word they spoke a carefully constructed lie, but the very adults who condemned a child to a life of starvation were themselves extremely obese to the point of being almost immobilized. It's just disgusting to watch this family, who are no strangers themselves to extreme overindulgence, to berate and abuse a child for asking for the most basic nutrition. Today, we are diving into the disturbing case of MG, the horrific abuse she faced, and exposing the web of lies that hid beneath it all. But before we get into this case, I want to take a moment to discuss one way that we can all stay safe when going about our everyday. Most people don't realize, but data brokers online are making billions selling personal information without your consent, destroying your privacy in the process. That is why I use a service called Aura. Aura protects your privacy by identifying data brokers selling your info. Then they gather that information, they take care of the hard part, automatically removing your information off of these sites and keeping it off. Aura is one of many services that offer online security, but none of them offer as many other features as Aura for the same price. Aura will give you alerts anytime your info is found on the dark web. They have real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking. Then they also offer a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more, all in one place. And worst case, if something does happen, they also include a $5 million identity theft insurance protection with US-based fraud experts ready to help you around the clock. Staying safe online is so very important to protecting your identity. I've had accounts be hacked, banking information stolen, and let me say, it's just not worth it. To think that I could lose everything I've worked so hard for just by not taking the proper safety measures is absolutely terrifying. So if you want to give Aura a tryout for yourself, head to aura.com/Rachel Shannon to try it free for 14 days. That's enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your info off these data broker sites without you having to do anything. So once again, that's aura.com/Rachel Shannon to try 14 days free. Thank you again so much to Aura for partnering with me on today's video. This case surrounds the abuse and neglect of a 14-year-old girl who has not been named publicly, only identified by her initials MG. It takes place in Oneida, Wisconsin, a small town located on the outskirts of Green Bay. For the first years of her life, MG lived with her mother until the spring of 2020, when she moved in with her dad, 47-year-old Walter Goodman, stepmom, 50-year-old Melissa Goodman, her adult stepsister, 29-year-old Savannah Lefevre, and stepbrother, 15-year-old NM. They also had 2 dogs, Lily and Sassy. A year after MG moved in August of 2021, her stepsister Savannah's partner, Kayla Stemler, also moved into the trailer. Not a lot is known about MG's life prior to moving in with her father. From what we know, she didn't have much contact with Walter since she was a little girl and had only met Melissa a few times before moving in. According to Walter, MG's mother went to jail in May of 2020, so CPS asked if he could take custody of her, and he agreed. That seems to be why she ended up with him, though we don't know why she ended up in jail, or if she's still in jail, or what issues she was facing. Either way, after moving in, this was the setup of the trailer. Melissa and Walter shared the main bedroom, Savannah had her own room, and MG joined NM in his bedroom. The room had bunk beds, so MG slept on the top bunk while NM slept on the bottom bunk. By the time Kayla moved in, though, NM moved out of the room he shared and started sleeping on the couch. And of course, Kayla joined Savannah in her room. It should be noted that both Walter and Melissa were extremely obese to the point of being almost bedbound. Neither of them left the home very often, and it's unclear whether either of them ever worked. Kayla was really the only one who actually worked outside the home. She had studied early childhood education and was working as a teacher's aide in a 3-year-old room at the Head Start program. At one point, NM was actually diagnosed with cancer, so really the only times Walter or Melissa would leave the home was when they took him to get his treatment. As for the kids, when MG lived with her mother, she attended public school in Oneida until COVID hit when she was in the 3rd grade. She ended up finishing out the 2019-2020 school year online before she moved in with her dad. While living with Walter, she continued the 4th grade virtually before she was then homeschooled for the next 3 years. So with that being said, pretty much no one in that trailer ever left. MG had little to no contact with her mother, grandmother, or other siblings. She didn't go to the doctor. She didn't interact with teachers or friends. She was stuck inside the trailer with 4 adults and 1 other teenager. No one ever heard anything about MG until the evening of August 21st, 2025, when Walter called 911 to report that his daughter was acting lethargic and was comatose. The call started with Walter saying, "I have a 14-year-old daughter that she don't barely eat, so she looks really skinny. She is also autistic, so if she don't want to eat, she don't eat. So the last 4 or 5 days she been sick, throwing up, and I've been giving her liquid IVs and all that kind of stuff. Today she is real lethargic and was throwing up her arm, laying on her bed, throwing up her arm, and now she's just laying there like she's comatose, but her eyes are open and she's moaning and she's throwing her arms around." He went on to say that he is an end-stage liver failure and her mother is diabetic, so maybe she's having some sort of health issues like they have, but he doesn't know. He said that she's breathing on and off, but it's not normal. He was asked if she's in any pain, and he said, "I don't know, she won't even talk. She's just laying there with her eyes open, all creepy." The operator then asked him to bring her outside, and he said he is. He mentioned that her clothes look huge and baggy on her. He said that she's been sick for 5 or 6 days, and at first he thought that it was just a cold or something like that because she's just been puking on and off. He said that she self-harms a lot, so her legs look horrible. The operator asked what he meant by self-harm, and he said that if she gets a mosquito bite, she will scratch it until it turns into a big open welt. She also hits herself in the head. He talked again about how she hasn't eaten in a while. She hasn't been able to really keep anything down in 4 or 5 days. Anything she would eat, she would just throw up again. Before that, though, she never really liked eating anything to begin with. She's a bit underweight because they could never get her to eat. Anytime they'd give her food, she'd be like, and just throw it away. By that point, Walter had made it outside and officers began pulling up to the trailer. As officers pulled up, they saw Walter carrying MG down the driveway. Right away, they noticed that the girl appeared to be severely underweight and malnourished. Just from the first glance, they could see that she had a very prominent rib cage, collarbones, hip bones, and cheekbones. Even though she was said to be 14, officers thought that she looked to be the size of a 6 or 7-year-old. Right away, they took MG from her father, placed her in an ambulance, and transported her to the hospital. When she arrived there, staff were absolutely horrified at her condition. At the time, she weighed just 35 pounds. And I don't think I need to tell you this, but that is literally an insane weight for a 14-year-old girl. The average weight for a 14-year-old girl is between 100 and 110 pounds. I can't even fathom the length of time that it would have taken for her to have been starved for her to reach such a low body weight. It was also found that she had a very large bruise on the right side of her forehead. She had a very low body temperature, multiple pressure sores on her body, which are caused from being immobilized for a prolonged period of time, and had a blood sugar of 24. A normal blood sugar for a fasting teenager is between 70 and 100. So again, she hadn't eaten in a very long time. This did not appear to be the case of a girl who had been sick for a week, who had just been eating as much as she could, but just couldn't keep much down. Even when you're eating and throwing up, your body will still absorb some of it, especially with what Walter said. He had earlier said that she ate and didn't throw up until hours later. If that were true, she would have had at least some sort of evidence of nutrition in her system, but she didn't. According to hospital staff, her low body weight was a result of prolonged extreme malnutrition and starvation, not a rapid onset of weight loss, not from 5 or 6 days of being sick. As staff and detectives were finding this information out, officers were back at the station questioning Walter about how his daughter ended up in this condition. Walter again told officers that MG had autism with the mentality of a 6-year-old. He said that she was abused by her mother before moving in with him, but he wasn't aware of these issues until he was already living in the trailer. He found out that she'd slept with a knife under her pillow because she was afraid due to the abuse she suffered from her mom. He said that she would give her sleeping pills and things like that. He even said that she was pretty much constantly on sleeping pills when she was with her mom, up to 5 or 6 pills at a time. But once in their home, she would never sleep. He said that she would fall asleep for a few hours at a time, but then would be awake for weeks at a time. She would also self-harm, so he ended up putting a camera in her room and an alarm on her door to keep an eye on her. But it wasn't for, anything other than to keep her safe. He just wanted to make sure he could see her at all times to make sure that she wasn't hurting herself. But then when it came to how much and what MG would eat, he gave conflicting statements. First, he said that she would often refuse to eat. He would give her Pediasure when he could, but even then, she would still refuse any food or drink. But when investigators mentioned that medical staff found her to be severely malnourished and underweight, Walter changed his tune. He said that MG would actually eat a lot. For breakfast, she could eat 2 whole packages of Pop-Tarts. For lunch, she would always eat a sandwich, either bologna or peanut butter and jelly, some chips, and sliced apple. Sometimes she would even eat 2 sandwiches. She would normally eat dinner, whatever they prepared. It wasn't that she was being starved. No, that's not why she was so skinny. It was because she was always up all night, burning off all her calories. On weeks where she would actually sleep, she would gain weight up to 70 pounds. On weeks where she was up all night, she could drop down to 40. Then, to add to that, she was also always playing with the puppies out in the yard, so she was constantly in motion, constantly burning off her energy. That is why she was so skinny. On the day of her collapse, he said that she had eaten a frozen pizza earlier in the day, but that she threw it up hours later. He told her to go lay down on her side until she felt better, but when he checked on her on the camera, her arm was flopping around, and she was not responding to him calling her name. He noticed that she peed her pants, so he went in there, grabbed her pants, and called 911. At that time, he remembered that her mom was diabetic, so he gave her some sips of a wild cherry Pepsi to get her blood sugar up, thinking that maybe she also had diabetes and that maybe that would help. Officers also noted that MG hadn't been seen by a medical provider for about 5 years, ever since moving in with him. He said that he didn't think that she needed any medical care, not even regular checkups, because she was the healthy one who wasn't sick. The rest of the family, they were all sick and they were all overweight, but she wasn't. Even though she had mental health problems, sleeping problems, refused to eat, was rapidly gaining and losing weight apparently, she was the healthy one. After speaking with Walter, officers went to the trailer to speak with everyone else who lived there. Melissa, Savannah, and Kayla all told similar stories that MG had behavioral problems. She would often refuse to eat and would stay up all night. They all said that she was offered 3 meals a day at least, so she was given plenty of food. Kayla pointed out that MG was known to dig through the trash to try and get more food from the kitchen, which would get her in trouble. But it wasn't because she was hungry. It was just because she was always looking for sweets and snacks. According to Kayla, MG would just eat non-stop if given the chance, which again, directly contradicts the stories each of them keep telling, which is that she just hates eating. She would always just turn her nose up to food they were giving her. She just hated eating. She was autistic, so she just had this problem where she never wanted to eat. Yet at the same time, they all said that she was constantly trying to eat. She was digging through the trash. She was always asking for food, and they sometimes had to stop her from getting food because she was eating so much. Which one is it? They also talked about how MG would keep knives in her room, so that is why they had the camera in her room. She would self-harm, so she also wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom on her own. When she would go to the bathroom, Walter would have to stand outside the door and wait there to make sure she wasn't hurting herself. They all denied that MG ever threatened them with the knives, but said that she had threatened to kill herself multiple times before. So that's why Walter had to take her to the bathroom, was because he would stand outside the door and listen to make sure that she wasn't hurting herself. So based on what they heard from every member of that family, it sounded like MG was just a very difficult child who had a lot of behavioral issues. They tried their best to get her to eat and sleep, but despite their best efforts, she just wouldn't. Even though she was severely underweight, it seemed that maybe they just didn't have a good understanding of how dangerous that was, given that the rest of them were also overweight. Maybe since they all knew that being overweight was bad, they may not have realized that being that underweight can be just as unhealthy. But after talking to a family friend and staff and teachers that knew MG, as well as reading through text messages shared between members of the household, investigators realized that none of them were as innocent as they tried to make themselves out to be. First, officers got into contact with a friend of Walter's, Anthony, who said that he grew up with Walter. The two recently reconnected that past summer when Walter would come to his home to help him fix up some four-wheelers. He estimates that Walter brought MG over about 4 times that summer. When officers told him MG's age, he was shocked to learn that she was 14 because he had thought that she was 8 or 9 years old because of how small she was. He reported that when they were over and Walter would be working on the four-wheelers and MG would ask Walter questions about what he was doing, Walter would immediately become irritated and tell MG to stop talking. At times, he would say things like, "Shut the F up," and "Sit there and don't say nothing." Anthony said that sometimes Walter would tell him things like, "If she misbehaves, I'm not going to feed her today." Anthony said that he can't do that, and Walter said, "Well, I keep her locked up in her bedroom with the camera on her, and that's where she stays." To which he told Walter that he shouldn't do that either. That was abuse. Once, Walter complained to Anthony that he caught MG digging through the trash, to which he said, "Well, duh, you're taking food away from her. She needs to eat." At times, Anthony would offer MG a sandwich or water, which she would always accept. He never noticed anything out of the ordinary about how she would eat or drink. Anthony even said that he confronted Walter on a few occasions about how he treated MG, and Walter would say things like, "You don't understand. She drives me nuts. If I could leave her somewhere in the woods, I would." Once, he even heard Walter tell MG that he wished he could kill her. Anthony said that when Walter would talk this way to MG, she would act really timid and withdrawn. She tried not to make waves or cause any issues. Which my heart just breaks after hearing this from Anthony. The fact that this man literally saw this happen, knew this man was abusing his daughter, yet didn't bother to call CPS is disgusting. Like, why bother to confront him about abusing his daughter and then do nothing to actually stop it? It makes no sense. In addition to Anthony, officers also spoke with a few staff members from MG's third grade year where she went to school in person. Her teacher, Keta, said that she remembered MG being friendly and talkative. She was a bit more active than the other students her age, but she never appeared to have eating problems. She ate just fine, and she always appeared healthy when she was her student, aka when she lived with her mother. She never knew of her being autistic, nor was she ever enrolled in any special education programs in the school. Once school went viral, MG would often send Keta messages about how much she missed her. She was a normal girl who interacted with teachers and peers as normal. As officers were interviewing those who interacted with MG, they were also looking into cell phone data from everyone who lived in the home with her. And that is where they got the real picture of how she was treated. The text messages start in 2023 and continue all the way through August 21st, 2025, the day 911 was called. Throughout these messages, every single member within that household, including Walter, Melissa, Savannah, Kayla, and NM, are seen talking about the abuse and neglect of MG. They pretty much exclusively refer to her as stupid or dummy in these messages. There are multiple texts where NM is texting Melissa asking if it's okay to let dummy out to pee, or is she just supposed to poop, or is she allowed to do both? Melissa texts NM that she is allowed to do both at that time. In other messages all throughout 2023, Melissa asks NM to let MG out of her room briefly so she can drink water and go to the bathroom, but to make sure to lock her back up before bed. In another message, NM texted Melissa saying, "Stupid's crying." Then on another occasion, NM texted Melissa asking what was going on, saying that he heard some yelling, and Melissa responded by saying, "Oh, IDK, I was yelling at stupid." Then there are messages between NM and Savannah, the two siblings, where they are talking about MG, calling her stupid and an idiot. In one message exchange, Savannah told NM that MG took a protein bar and hid it in her pants, with Savannah calling her an idiot. NM replying, "She's stupid," to which Savannah said, "I know, I hate her." In addition to all of those messages, there are multiple family group chats with Kayla, Savannah, and Melissa with all of the same themes. In one message exchange, they're all texting while Melissa, Walter, and NM are all away from the home at one of NM's appointments for his cancer treatment. They started texting because apparently it was easier than Melissa having to watch MG through the camera while she was at the appointment. Savannah says in the group chat, referring to MG, "I'm gonna roundhouse kick her ass through the window." Melissa replies, "Do it." Kayla says, "LOL, she deserves it." Continuing, "It's just like, when has it ever been okay to just take food off her TV?" Melissa says, "It's never been okay, and she knew and heard what you said. It's just MG being an ass and doing what she wants to." Melissa then said, "Go slap her ass again, because I keep telling her heads up and she keeps moving it back down." So as we can see, Melissa is clearly watching everyone through the cameras in the home and is basically telling MG what to do, and when she doesn't listen, she's texting the girls to go hit her when she doesn't listen. A few minutes later, the text conversation continues. This time, everyone seems to be getting more and more heated. Melissa, "She's listening to you guys, LOL." Savannah, "I'm gonna let Sassy take a fat poop in her room all night instead of going outside." Savannah, "She always does. She's nosy." Savannah, I'm always listening and laughing, and I told her yesterday, who told you to listen and who told you to laugh at me? Shut up, close your ear holes, lol. Melissa, yeah, she does that always. We get after her all the damn time about it. Melissa, she makes me so mad, dude, I'm seething. Kayla, I've only had her since Saturday, and I'm so mad to the bone. I don't know how in the world you do it. Melissa, it's hard, TBH, and some days I don't want to anymore and just wish she'd go away. Melissa, I'm just being honest. Savannah, I want to karate kick her dumb head. Kayla, I totally get that. There are more text conversations after that between the three of them where they're discussing not feeding her or taking away her food as punishment. Kayla told the group chat that she told MG that she's not allowed to talk from her room and that her priorities are Savannah, Sassy, and Lily in that order, and that she needs to sit still and wait patiently before her needs are met. If she talks or moves too much, she will have her bed taken away, no TV or food. They also talked about how if she takes more than one bite at a time when eating, she gets hit with a belt. If she eats too much or tries to ask for more food, then food is taken away and she doesn't get to eat until the next day. They then talked about how she would try to manipulate them into trying to get more food, saying that she is ridiculous. By 2025, they all start talking about how bad MG is starting to look. By March, Savannah texts Melissa saying, OMG, I'm sobbing. She just sat up and looking at her is scary. She continues in later texts, I wish she didn't look so awful so she could just go to the doctor and get a feeding tube with that high calorie stuff and M had. Melissa says, yeah, I know. Continuing, maybe she'll behave and you guys can get her on a schedule like we had her on, but she always throws up after a while. Savannah, yeah, I know, I hate that. It's just scary. She looks like hell. It seems that maybe that day they tried getting her to eat something and maybe she wouldn't eat, or maybe she threw up, maybe she wasn't feeling well. Either way, when someone is starving like that, getting to the point of being an extremely low body weight, because at this point, as we can tell by the text messages, she was extremely skinny to the point of looking scary. When you try to feed them again, especially if you try to feed them a lot so that they start gaining weight, sometimes your body will reject the food. They'll get full extremely fast because their body just isn't used to taking in that much food. And so they'll throw up because their body just cannot handle it. So whatever was going on with MG at that time, whatever they were trying to do with her, Savannah was getting very frustrated with her. She texted Melissa, God, I hate her. Melissa, why? Savannah, she makes me so mad. Melissa, why? Savannah, she's just stupid, pulling the same shit she always does, crying her stomach hurts and her legs hurt. Melissa, ask her if she wants me to yell again. Savannah, she stopped now. I just lost my shit on her. If I need you, I'll message again. For the weeks that follow, there are multiple more text exchanges like this one, where Savannah and Melissa go back and forth about how much they hate MG, how she looks so bad, how they try to feed her, but how she's complaining about how much pain she's in. Her complaining is very frustrating to them. So there are a lot of messages where they're talking about how they're beating her until she's quiet and how they're taking away her food still as punishment. So even though they can tell that she's getting really bad and she's starting to look so skinny that she can't even go to the doctor because she looks so bad, they still can't help themselves from punishing her by taking her food away from her because they're just that frustrated with her. They just hate her so badly that they just can't help themselves from torturing her like that. As the weeks go on, you can just feel the growing frustration and hatred with both Melissa and Savannah as MG's condition continues to worsen, even though it is their faults. By the early morning hours of August 20th, the messages between Savannah and Melissa continue. By this point, Melissa's been talking about how much anxiety she has about how bad MG has been looking, and Savannah keeps bringing up that she is looking pretty bad and keeps saying like, sorry, I don't want your anxiety to get bad, but I'm a little worried with how bad she's looking. And Melissa's just always like, I can't handle this. This is too much for me. My anxiety is too much. I'm not dealing with this. By 2:58 a.m., Melissa says she's just acting weird and saying she's going to pass out and shit, to which Savannah replies, of course she is, because I guess that's just what she does. The following day, by 11:54 a.m. on August 21st, Melissa says, we're trying to go to bed. We only got up because she was throwing up in there. Continuing, Walter said it's because she ate too fast. Savannah says, IDK, he scares me with her because he always says she's dying. By 4:45 p.m., Savannah texts, what's going on? Melissa says, IDK, she's being weird. Savannah, oh, like how? Is she okay? Melissa, IDK, I can't see what's going on in there. Savannah, oh sorry, him telling her she was dying the other day just made me really anxious. Then at 4:59 p.m., Savannah says, are you guys okay? Melissa, IDK, I'm freaking out. Savannah, is she like actually having seizures? Melissa, IDK, what she's doing or having. Savannah, is she awake and moving and just weak? Melissa, I'm not sure. Savannah, sorry, I'm just trying to understand so I can try to help. Savannah, do you want me to see if Kayla can get her up? Those are the last texts we have from the affidavit. It was just 20 minutes after these texts were sent when 911 was called to report that MG appeared to have trouble breathing and was comatose. Unlike what they tried to claim, we can see that MG didn't appear to have behavioral issues stemming from autism. She was being abused. Maybe she did have some behavioral problems stemming from a sudden drastic change in her life. She was suddenly removed from the home she knew her entire life when she was just 8 or 9 years old and placed with a family she barely knew. That's a huge change for anyone. All the while, the whole world was changing around her. She was taken away from her school, her peers, her friends. She had to stay home in this home with people she barely knew. That is such a massive and scary change for anyone. COVID was such a scary and uncertain time for everyone, including adults, let alone a little girl who was living with a brand new family that she barely knew. So as a result of her being scared and alone and having to deal with all this change, she was abused and neglected. She was stuck in a home with people who were hurting her, neglecting her. She was locked away in a room, all alone, with nothing and no one. She was starved. So of course, she started digging through the trash and begging for food, maybe even hiding food in her room. She was kept from using the bathroom, so of course she screamed out and cried to be let out. She was locked in a room by herself with nothing to do, so of course she moved too much or begged to be let out. She was a little girl who was denied every single basic need for the entire 5 years she lived with her dad, and there was absolutely nothing she could do about it. No one checking in on her, no one she could confide in, because she was stuck in a home all alone with the government telling her that she wasn't allowed to go to school. And then even when she was allowed to go back to school, even the government programs that were designed to check in on her weren't doing that because her family said that she was being homeschooled, and they just believed her and didn't bother to double check on that. Nothing was done to help her. Nothing was done to make sure she was okay. So she lived 5 years in absolute hell. After 911 was finally called, she was transported to the hospital and given treatment, which included being intubated, put on a feeding tube, and given nutritional support. I am very happy to report that, unlike so many cases that we cover on this channel, MG survived. And because of that, we have a very unique look into this case, which is what she had to say and what her behavior was like after all of this happened. Now, of course, this happened very recently, and she is still undergoing treatment. Again, she was extremely underweight, and that kind of malnourishment can't be fixed by just eating a crap ton and gaining weight. It needs to be done in a very intentional, methodical way. But since her admittance to the hospital, it has been said that she has made tremendous progress. In just a few months, she's apparently grown 3 inches and doubled in body weight. Now, due to how confined she was in her room, she was often curled up in the fetal position, and her arms and legs were extremely tight because she was, like this all the time because she just laid there unable to do anything else. So, her arms and legs were unable to fully straighten. So I'm guessing that's where a lot of her height gains came from because she didn't actually grow that much, but she was able to straighten out from gaining that mobility back. She's also regained a lot of muscle mass and strength. She's received tons of physical therapy, so movement such as walking and standing has become easier and less painful. According to hospital staff, it was said that as MG was receiving treatment, she has shown absolutely no issues with eating. In fact, it was said that her eyes lit up when talking about all the food options she got to choose from at the hospital. She has no underlying GI issues that would cause her to always throw up her food, no pickiness, no oral motor or swallowing concerns. She eats her 3 meals a day and enjoys most foods, even hospital foods, which is a lot because when I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital for 3 days. I survived mostly on Ensure drinks because I really hated the hospital food. I'm so picky that I wouldn't eat a lot of what I was given. I did forget to order most of the time, so I was given a lot of food that I really didn't want. So I will say that. But I drank a lot of the Ensure drinks because I did not like the hospital food. Hospital food is gross. So the fact that this little girl was eating 3 meals a day of hospital food, that does say a lot. It says that she is not all that picky. She may be less picky than me. She was also seen to interact with staff and others mostly appropriately given her condition. Of course, she is traumatized and has psychological issues that she's going to have to continue to work through. But nothing about her behaviors indicate that she has any neurodevelopmental conditions such as autism. She also seems to sleep through the night comfortably, again, giving her conditions. The hospital is not a comfortable place to sleep, so of course, she is a little bit restless. But other than that, she seems just fine. Based on everything hospital staff has observed, everything they learned about MG from her family seems to be a total fantasy. Things they made up to excuse her horrendous treatment of her. She appears to be a normal 14-year-old girl who has been dealt the absolute worst hand in life, but who is very resilient and tenacious. I am happy to report that she's been placed into the care of family members who are working together to provide the best care they can for MG. They have been sharing details about her incredible strides through recovery and a promise to continue doing so as she continues through her journey.
I can tell you she's a very vibrant little girl. She will tell you exactly how she feels about all situations. And I think that's really what's helped her to progress as far as she has in the past 6 weeks, really since she's been released from the hospital. And when she was actually back with our family in our care, it made me feel way more comfortable with that she'll never have to go through that again. She's up to 78 pounds now, so she's over doubled her body weight. She's 3 inches taller. Okay. There's still a lot of long-term malnourishment issues that are still we have to address, right, as she develops. But she still has really fragile bones. She has a hard time doing regular day-to-day things because her body just it doesn't have the muscle mass to do that. And so just keeping that in mind, she wants to do those things. Like, she wants to go and play. She wants to go and run. And we have to keep reminding her, like, just wait for your body to catch up. But she is getting there. Like I said, she's very vibrant. So right now she's within our family, within our care, and we're all coming collectively together to help with whatever we can. So immediately when she was released from the hospital, like, what do you want? What are you interested in? And because she has been isolated for so long, a lot of her interests aren't typically what you'd see for a 14-year-old. She eats all the time, almost I would say like an infant, every 4 to 6 hours. In the beginning, she would even wake up in the middle of the night, 4 to 6 hours. She wanted to eat, and her body's consistently telling her to take in food. Um, her hairline is one of the things I didn't really think about in the beginning. She came out like, you don't think that the hairline goes away. It's starting to grow in now, so it almost looks like a child that got scissors and cut their hair all around her hairline, around the back of her neck, and in the front. But it's all growing in now. But it does look like she has like little bitty baby hairs coming in all over. Um, but even just regular things when she was trying to take a shower, like her shoes so small that really like everything like felt like pain then, right? So even taking a shower hurt. But yeah, she's just an awesome little person, and I really appreciate like any of our community, family, friends that have shown their support. We've had quite a few people reach out, and that's why we created the GoFundMe. Was really we want to give them an outlet to be able to help. They've asked what her interests are, and like I said, those things will probably change fast. She's started in school, so she's being exposed to more children her age, and that has only helped her growth, right? Like she really didn't have any of that for the past 5 years. So just being exposed to other children her age is something she really thrives on. But yeah, it's a whole new thing. She still has a long way to go.
As for the low-life pieces of trash responsible for all of this, they have been arrested and charged in connection with the abuse and neglect. As of right now, Melissa and Walter Goodman, Savannah Lefevre, and Kayla Stamler have each been charged with 3 counts of chronic child neglect causing great bodily harm and 2 counts each of chronic child neglect causing emotional damage. So far, only Walter has appeared for a preliminary hearing, but it was then delayed until January of 2026. I believe Kayla's hearing is scheduled for December of this year, but we'll have to see if that takes place or if it's also delayed. Given that this is taking place around the holiday season, who knows when everything will actually happen.
The 4 defendants all accused of neglecting Goodman's 14-year-old daughter, limiting her access to food, while prosecutors noted the adults in the home were obese and 2 of them were bedbound. One witness recalling her father saying, quote, "Well, I keep her locked up in her bedroom with a camera on her, and that's where she stays." After Wednesday's hearings, 12 News traveled to Oneida, to the trailer where the teen was found near death, weighing 35 pounds, a more typical weight for a 3-year-old. A new notice on the door now calls the house unsafe for humans. Police tape still in the front yard. We knocked on every single door on the Goodmans street. For those neighbors that did answer, they say they didn't know the Goodmans and they never saw the 14-year-old girl at this home. None wanted to go on camera Wednesday, one even with a proactive no comment. But some say the allegations come as a shock, leaving them heartbroken at every detail.
But with that being said, I'm so happy to see that these monsters are finally behind bars for what they did. For 5 long, grueling years, MG suffered so freaking much, words cannot describe. And I know that there is one person not charged who we've talked about, and that is her stepbrother, NM. I will say, though, not knowing anything else about the situation other than the fact that he was only 15, him having to witness and taking part in her abuse at such a young age, that is also a form of abuse. Yes, he is old enough to know better, but he is also living in a house with those adults who are all teaming up against this child. When she moved in, he was also only 9 or 10 years old. He's also not going to school. He is also unable to confide in anyone outside the home. Even if he knew it was wrong, he also didn't have any other options. It was either bully and abuse his stepsister or be abused himself. I'm sure years down the line, he will be traumatized with how he treated her, and he'll need to work through the trauma himself. I'm sure he will if he doesn't already feel guilt for his role in it. Growing up in that situation can be almost just as traumatizing as being the victim of it yourself. So I do want to give him grace, and I know he's going to need a lot of therapy to sort of work through what he went through as well. So I hope that he can get through this as well, and that he comes out of this okay. As for the adults in that home, they are all absolute monsters. And I do want to take a moment to talk about Kayla specifically, because not only is she not even a part of that family and she could have left at any time, but she literally works in early childhood education. She got a degree in early childhood education, and she worked outside the home and worked with children every single day. She literally is choosing to date someone whose family is participating in the abuse and starvation of a little girl. And she also took part in the abuse and starvation of a little girl. She said that MG deserved it herself, and then she took part in it herself. I don't know how you live with yourself knowing that at home you are starving, hitting, abusing a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girl, and then going to work and working with children. It just does not make any sense to me, and I think that makes it even worse. That being said, I hope they all face the absolute harshest punishments possible. I hope all the other inmates know exactly what they did, because I'm sorry, but being as severely overweight as they are, having starved a little girl as severely as MG was starved, I don't miss the irony in that at all. And I don't think the other inmates will either. I hope they're treated just as badly as they treated MG. And I hope they live every single day the rest of their miserable lives being reminded of just how shitty they are. And I hope MG lives her life to its fullest while the people that abused her suffer for what they did to her. But before I take this rant any further, I'm just going to stop it there. That is what I think, and now I want to hear from you all. What do you think about this case overall? Do you think it'll end up going to trial, or will they try to accept plea deals? Do you think they'll get harsh punishments, or will they get lighter sentences because she did survive? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments down below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. All will be listed down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.